Okay, it's 4 o'clock.
It's recorded.
Oh, I thought he said he had gone live.
I said we're about to go live.
Okay.
Here we go.
Good. Okay, it's 4 o'clock, so this is the November 20th meeting of the Nantucket Board of Health. The meeting is being audio and visually recorded. And our next thing is always any public comment that the public would like to make, both here in person and online.
Good afternoon, Curtis Barnes, back again. My first question is, do we know how many STR registrations have been made yet after the November 1st deadline?
Record.
I don't have the exact number. It's 1,130, I believe.
And last year we had 1,300, so there's still people that are out there. I want to comment that Laurie, your new staff person, has been very helpful. And so I'm once again asking the board to review the fee structure. As I've told you before, in Yarmouth, it's $80. In Barnstable, it's $95. I think now with Laurie on board, perhaps she could survey some of the other communities and see what is appropriate. As I recall, when this $250 fee was instituted, there was no staff recommendation made about the fee. When I came last time when you were discussing fees, I was told the STR fee is not in your fee structure. So once again, I'd like to take a look at it because it seems to me that $250 may be excessive, and as I understand it, fees are not to exceed the cost of administering the program. Thank you very much.
Well, good news, Curtis. It's on an agenda item next meeting in December.
Then I wasted your time already. Thank you for that.
Okay, minutes. Now we have two. We have the regular meeting and then we have the special meeting, which was for the camps. Does anyone have any corrections or?
I have one. On the September, is it September 10th? Or is it supposed to be the camp meeting under the Nantucket Community Sailing? It says motion to grant a 3-year variance for ACT Surf School. And so it just needs to be changed to Nantucket Community Sailing because I did not vote on the ACT Surf School. So I don't want it to look like I voted on things I'm not supposed to.
Okay. Thank you for that correction, Meredith. We will fix that. Any others for the 16th? Okay, what about the 27th? Well, maybe we should just go ahead and approve with the correction, the 16th, right? Should we do that?
Motion to approve those minutes with the corrections from Mary.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You got to do roll call.
Oh,
Do a roll call.
is Carrie on?
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
it's
Tom?
okay.
Aye.
Ann? Aye. Meredith?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
Okay. The 16th are approved. Now we have the 20, actually, your comment was on the 27th, wasn't it, Meredith?
Yes.
When you were talking, when we were talking about the 16th, okay.
Yeah.
So the 16th, there were no comments. The 27th, you want to correct that one thing. Does anyone
Yes.
else have anything to say about the 27th? No, all right. So can we have a motion to approve those minutes for the 27th of October?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay, all in favor? Jim? Meredith?
Aye.
Ann? Aye. Tom?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
Good, all right, so those are approved with Meredith's correction about that she didn't vote. All right, now, we have something slightly different, which is a request that we made in a previous meeting, and that is to have the director's report early on, rather than at the very end, when everybody is ready to go. So, Rocky, could you?
Yes, Madam Chair. So a few things. First of all, just what I know about the beached whale situation. I know it was mentioned last night in Select Board. They're getting 3 bids, I believe, to remove that whale from the beach. From a public health perspective, certainly should not come in contact with it. I believe the federal law is 300 feet. You need to stay back from it. Certainly prevent any pets from coming in contact with it as well. Thanks again to the Board of Health members and really the entire community. We had volunteers at the vaccine clinic, Board of Health. We had the fire department. We had health department staff. So it was really a town effort. A group of people got together and made this happen. I think it was really successful. We still have some flu and COVID vaccine available, and we've started providing that vaccine at the health department with our public health nurse, Erin. So if anybody is preparing to travel and maybe hasn't had their vaccine that they're interested in having, either flu or COVID, they can reach out to the health department directly, and Erin will arrange to provide that vaccine. So there was a recently published report of a death as a result of an anaphylactic reaction from an alpha-gal syndrome, which is the molecule that's really that the humans don't make. It's spread by the Lone Star tick, and that was just published. It actually happened a year ago, but it's the first confirmed case in the United States, and a very unfortunate situation. And really the only symptom this person had was severe abdominal pain 2 weeks before. That was really their only warning that there was an issue. They got over it, didn't think anything of it, and 2 weeks later had another reaction and unfortunately passed away. So real tragedy, and just a reminder that we have the Lone Star tick here on the island. It is not to the degree that we see it on Martha's Vineyard, but it is here. We see it more and more every year. We saw more this year than we did last year. I think we've had only 11, well, I shouldn't say only because 1 is too many, but we've had 11 cases of alpha-gal diagnosed here on the island in about the last year and a half. Martha's Vineyard, who started out like we did, has had over 500 cases. So it's a real concern. Just a reminder to, wear your permethrin-treated socks. When you go for a walk, avoid those areas that where ticks congregate. You keep in mind that you want to keep your pets out of there. If you take your pets with you, check them before they get back in the house. Make sure you check yourself when you get inside. And know that ticks can bite any time of the year. The general kind of rule of thumb is if the temperature is higher than 39 degrees, then they are active and they can bite. And so please take precautions as the public. Also on ticks, Martha's Vineyard has a ex-biologist, he's calling himself. But he's wonderful, and he does yard surveys. So he goes from yard to yard, and he's basically looking for ticks on the yard, in the different yards, and he's getting a good idea so he can provide information to the homeowners as well as to the community at large. And we have just started doing that a little bit here on the island with a student, a very enthusiastic student who just graduated college, has been working with that tick biologist to do a few yards here. I think she's maybe done 10 or 15, hasn't really found any ticks, but this is an activity we'd like to do over the next, certainly during the next spring and summer. Mosquitoes, no West Nile virus or Eastern equine encephalitis that was diagnosed here on the island. Either this year, 2025, this summer, or last summer, which is great news, but there's still that potential for it. We certainly have the mosquitoes here on the island that can carry those two viruses, and in the case of Eastern equine encephalitis, that's it could be deadly. We had a Serve Safe class last week. We had 14 individuals that actually took the test. Results are still pending, but it's a great service that's provided here by, I think Heather has taught the class the last couple of times and done a wonderful job. A lot of really good feedback from those that have been able to take her class. And I think that's all I have.
Anybody have any questions for Rocky?
Madam Chair, just a quick anecdote. A family member in Nantucket who has alpha-gal, and it's pretty serious, and she went to get a little skin thing dealt with, and the stitches were mammalian of origin. And luckily, they flagged it beforehand, so she didn't have a reaction to it. But it kind of makes you think, like, how careful you have to be when you have alpha-gal. So it's, yeah, pretty serious.
Absolutely.
Okay, Rocky, thank you. We have two issues that the board has been working on for some time now. Number 5 and number 6 on the agenda. And we are going to open a public hearing about an amendment to the Hammock Pond watershed regulation. And I think I'm going to say them both at the same time, and we can either decide to take them separately or one at a time. And the wellhead protection district regulation. So this is opening a public hearing, and we have published the proposed amendment, and so it's now open to any comments or questions that anyone may have. No hands? Oh, hi.
Hi, Steve Visco, 2 Zachary Way, former board member. What do you, because I don't see a lot of people here, you don't plan on adopting these regulations to mirror Nantucket and Mattocket Harbor watershed tonight? Do you? Or are you going to extend these 2 public hearings for further comment from the public? This affects a lot of people.
Well, I believe it's been published for the required period of time. I think it went into the Inquirer Mirror. Rocky, what was that date?
Madam Chair, I think the discussion at the last meeting was to leave the public hearing open for
2
until the
months.
next month before any voting is
That's right.
done on it, to provide the public the opportunity to comment. They can do so in writing, or they can do so here via the public forum.
Okay, because this is a big deal for a lot of people. It affects town property that the town owns, the housing authority. The wellhead protection zone encompasses a lot of property that are still on septic and most likely will never be on sewer. So I just want to make sure that there's adequate time for people to come in and talk about it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors. I think the comments that I have are specific really to both. The two proposals pretty much mirror each other, so if I could, just a few questions and maybe a few suggestions. 288.3, I think there's more of a typo on the second. You state that system serving new construction shall be Mass DEP approved, enhanced nitrogen removal system designed, operated to such that the effluent flow rates not exceed 440 gallons per day per acre of design flow. The following sentence, incorporation of enhanced nitrogen reducing system shall not increase design flows above 440 gallons per day, period. I believe that should be followed by per day per acre. Otherwise, the implication is that you're restricting everything to 440 gallons per day 440 gallons per day, whether you have lot area or not. Unless I'm reading that wrong. I think it's just that 440 gallons per day per acre needs to be added to that line also.
Would you agree with that, John?
Yeah, I can see how that could be interpreted that way. Yeah, because it's not exceed 440. Yeah, I could see how, as Paul
Yeah.
pointed out, that second sentence could be interpreted that way, that it's just 440 for all pieces of land. So I think that's a good.
Okay, and that would be applicable to both. That's in both cases. Within that same 288.3, you have systems previously permitted for greater than design flow. It says, well, nitrogen systems exceeding the flow limitation shall not be approved or permitted. Nitrogen credits for more bedrooms shall not be permitted. Then you have systems previously permitted for greater than design flows. And then you added that also received a certificate of compliance shall be permitted to keep those design flows as stated on the approved application. So it says systems previously permitted for greater design flows that also received a certificate of compliance. So if a permit is now issued, these regulations are adopted, but it is not in the ground and does not have a certificate of compliance, is the intent to invalidate that permit? So the words that also received a certificate of compliance, I think, could potentially be seen to limit a permit that's in hand, still valid, but is basically protected by the adoption of the regulations, unless I'm missing that one.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well. I would say at the time of permitting, maybe is what Paul's alluding to.
Yeah. And then just the wording on 288, the word, like in this case, the Hummock Pond, it says that also received, but yet in the other, for the other one says, and which received. So the wording is different in both, but it still implies that a valid permit could be null and void if it was not, a COC wasn't issued. In 288.5, system location on a lot, every on-site system and potable water supply well shall be on the same lot as land as the building. That's a given, that's always been the case. The second statement, though, or structure which they serve. No soil absorption system may be located closer than 10 feet to a property line. Well should be, says system and well. Wells are given. This would imply that you're not allowing shared systems, or could be seen to imply that you're not allowing a shared system. So every
Yes.
on-site, I mean, you could qualify that with the exception of a shared system approved by the board in accordance with Title V. Those are just some technical things with
Yeah.
regard to the.
Okay, we've
to
got that noted, thanks.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And Kerry McKenna had his hand up at one point. I just want to give him an opportunity to speak if he'd still like to.
No, I took my hand down. I mean, it has to do, Paul is right about there's some inconsistent wording between the two, and yet the two were supposed to be very similar. So those are really good points he brought up. Thank you.
Thank you, Don Bracken from Bracken Engineering. One thing sort of, as Paul was saying, some clarification. If you look at 288-6.2B, it says effluent flow does not exceed, so a repair, it says effluent flow does not exceed 440 gallons per day per acre. Now, I realize that in the first paragraph, 288-3, Paul just addressed it, that it says the graded design flows permitted as long as it was approved in an application. It's just, I don't know if you want to add some kind of note there too to sort of reinforce that, because when you read it separately, it almost looks like if you just look at that section, you're if you don't meet that requirement, you'd have to make adjustments or something to the house. Because the new construction does say any property that does not meet current nitrogen limitations shall upgrade to the maximum extent feasible. That's what, the regulation's right, it's just, I don't know if you want to add some clarification, and so when people read that one section, they realize that, yes, we're still grandfathered for what we have. But if you read it alone, it doesn't sound like that. Then I just had some very general questions. Again, last time I was up talking about these regulations, it was more about, the science and the backing of it. Now that you're rewriting the Hummock Pond watershed regulations and, making them more conservative, I didn't know if there's been any more recent data or baseline information to compare with the original information for the reason the regulations were adopted in the first place, to see if there are any changes, if it's gotten better or if it's gotten worse. I don't know if that's been looked at to sort of justify the need for the regulations. And then in the wellhead protection area, these systems are only going to take out nitrogen, and so has anybody consulted with Wanacoma to determine if the public water supply has any nitrogen issues right now, and if these regulations are implemented, is that going to improve any of those conditions? I think that would be helpful for the public to know as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I just want to comment quickly on what Mr. Bracken said. I think that's an interesting point. Maybe we could ask the director want to comment to weigh in on that, or to maybe come to a meeting and talk about that, because I think that is illustrative of it will shed some light on what we're trying to wade through here, if the chair agrees.
Certainly, I see no reason why we couldn't do that.
The water director is online if you do want him to speak.
I don't want to put him on the spot, but
Yeah,
if
I get it.
Okay, would you be
Yeah,
able to?
you're not putting me on the spot at all. So the nitrogen here at the public water supply, we have not had nitrogen issues yet. We don't see spikes over the years. I've been looking at this now for 20+ years, and we're staying pretty consistent. I think overall, you guys as a commission and a Board of Health have done pretty good protecting our zone 2. So as far as the nitrogen level goes, we have not seen a significant increase over the last decade, even with the heavy construction that's going on. So most of the zone 2 is on sewer.
Okay. That's helpful, thank you.
Good evening, Dan Malloy, Site Design Engineering. I echo everything that Paul and Don already said. They pretty much covered everything I would have brought up. I only had one question. Under section 288.5, it talks about system location on the lot. And part of one of the first sentence where it talks about every system shall be on the lot that it serves. But it goes on to also talk about saying that the well, a potable water supply has to be on the same lot. And I would just question, where this is meant to be a septic system regulation, whether you should be adding well specifications within the septic. Since you already have a well bylaw or well requirements, I'd ask maybe consider taking it out of this section and having it in the well permit requirements. You just, someone doing well work or permitting isn't going to refer to a septic regulation for that. That's just a clarity. It's all I'm asking about that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Either online or in the room? Okay. Yeah,
Chair?
yes, sir.
So I mean, everyone knows I'm fairly new to this board, so I'm still getting used to these kind of regulations. So on the same point that Mr. Malloy brought up, if that were, just say it were septic, are there going to be allowances for folks to still come to us for a variance for these kinds of points? Because I know even dealing with town stuff since I've been on the select board, like there are shared septics, et cetera. So I'm just kind of curious how that will affect like our work here. I guess I'm kind of curious, and this may be rhetorical, and we can discuss this a little later time. But how kind of like what is there going to be other recourse for folks to come to us to ask for variances? Is kind of what I'm getting at.
Well, I think that 288-8 probably speaks to that. Do you see that? The Board of Health, in the case of extraordinary circumstances, may issue a variance from the strict application of these regulations.
That's good.
Yeah, okay. So from the board, anybody want to talk a little bit more about?
I definitely think I'm open to more public comment, and this is not my specialty, so more reviewing of this, but I do think it's going to help protect our water, and not just our water aquifer, but also our waterways, our oceans and ponds. And I mean, it's really more of a protection for everything. I think there are a lot of the zone 2 is on public water, but or on sewer, but there's sections that are not and probably never will be. So I think that this helps to really protect our aquifer and protect our harbor and all of us.
And Mr. McKenna has his hand up as well.
Yeah.
Eric?
Hi. First, thank you to, all so far who've commented. The goal of these was to first, kind of get some standardization across the most sensitive areas. And we wanted to not only have the language be the same, but the result be the same, which is to protect the aquifer and the surrounding waterways in terms, the harbor and to protect essentially all of like Meredith pointed out. The issue, really is we're looking at this as long term in terms of if we stay on the path we're on with a single source aquifer. So we do understand that it may cause some inconvenience, but again, we only have a single source a single source water supply, and that has to be protected. But the comments made, I do appreciate the clear focus that they use to really look at these to help us sort out the wording and make sure that it is as clear and consistent as possible. So thank you to all those. And to Tom's concern, I think that the 288.8, is there for that, for those reasons, like on Nantucket where we have properties that, wells are in one place, septic systems are on some other place, and we can't go back and change that, but we still can grant variances where there are these unusual situations that have more historical grounding. So I don't think we're taking that away from owners and from the people. So that's where we are. I think we will take these comments into absolute consideration. And hopefully what we'll have at the December meeting, if there's any other people who have concerns, to please come and attend and let us hear what your concerns are about these potentially updated regulations. Thank you.
Sure. So I guess what I was getting at is that extraordinary circumstances. So this board, since I've been on, has been hesitant to approve a lot of these variances. We've done it, right? But hesitant for a number of reasons. And this regulation, if it were so passed as applied, I'm kind of curious how this is going to fall under extraordinary circumstances. Is it going to be any variance that's going to come to the board, or is it up to the chair? Is it up to I just want to be clear so that the public knows when they're asking for a variance what the criteria is for that coming to us.
Are you saying that you would like to spell out what extraordinary circumstances are? Would that be, do you think that would be helpful? I think before you were sort of with us, one of the reasons that we're here today is that it became constant. We were spending most of our meeting on these septic variances. And the other thing is that it seemed odd to us that if a district was worth protecting, that there were sort of different strokes for different folks. And that the different protected districts had different rules. And so I think one of the things that we're trying to do here is make the same rules for each district, not because they are the same geographically, but because they each have a reason why they need to be protected. So I think maybe we should talk about whether we should try to spell out what an extraordinary circumstance would be, or because I can see your point, which is that we could get bogged down with all the time, trying to say, okay, is this an extraordinary circumstance, or is this just a regular situation that, where someone, and that could become, an issue.
How do you decide what every extraordinary circumstance? I mean, I think one of this protects our water and also, and I don't think a extenuating or extraordinary circumstances, I bought a piece of land and I want to put 10 bedrooms, but I'm only allowed 5, and I might not be getting the numbers right, but this sort of ends these constant variances of more, and, well, you've already done it. I feel like there was a lot of pushback of, you've already done this, and every time a variance comes, it is a variance. It is, this is the rule, this is what I have. I either don't want to get there or I can't, and I think that's the difference. The I can't, I'm like, okay, then that's something we need to work with a variance. The I don't want to, like, these are the, I mean, I feel like we are a small island with a sole source aquifer and an ocean that I think a lot of people use recreationally and for their livelihood. And if we're not protecting that and doing everything we can possibly do to protect that, then we're not doing a good job.
I'm sure, yeah, I obviously completely agree in theory. I guess also what I'm concerned about is it is so expensive to live here. It is so expensive to build here. And there's a lot of islanders that want to build a cottage or an ADU now or whatever for their kids who want to stay here and all that. And I'm worried about that this is going to get a lot more expensive for them. And I think that has to factor into, because it is applied to the real world. I'm not saying that the environment is important. I'm not saying that's not our purview. We should be thinking about all this. But if we really need to enumerate to the public, Mary, you used the word more, and I'm going to single out. I hate singling out one word, but I hear that a lot around. And I just wanted us to be really careful of our purview and going over that. Because our, as you said, Madam Chair, a couple months ago, our goal, our remit here is not to stop growth. It's not to, and I'm just concerned that we're going a little beyond what is our scope here with this. If it is, I'm not convinced that it's well-intentioned, it's in good faith, but I'm not sure that this is exactly the right course. But I am very open to listening to this, and I hope that more folks do come out over the next couple weeks and months, depending on how long we hold it over, to say how this is applied. I'd really like to have the housing department come in. They have a bunch of projects that are going to coming up in the next couple of years. It's very important for the town's strategic plan, and those are major costs in there. Again, I'm not minimizing what we're doing here. It's just I think these are kind of exercises that we need to go through before we really start to get to the end of deliberating on this.
I definitely think this needs, I'm not saying that we should approve these today. I think it's clear that this needs a little more time for all of the parties that would be affected to be aware, and go from there.
And Mr. McKenna has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. I guess I kind of disagree with Tom, where I think this is an issue where we really did work hard to stay in our lane. We are focused on public health, not construction. And yes, so we want to make sure that the regulation is clear and provides as much guidance as possible. But ultimately, our concern is public health, and the water supply is is absolutely part of that. So, I think this actually was a good example of, the board really working. And if I think of all the previous discussions we had really focused on staying in its lane of looking at the issue from a public health point of view, because we are not the building department, we're not zoning, and that's not our purview. It may, yes, can the regulation we make impact those? Yes, that could. But again, if we are doing it for the purpose of public health, not for the purpose of managing growth. So, I think we definitely, I want to hear more, I would like to hear more comments. And, I do appreciate the ones we got because again, the wording and language of a regulation is critical for it to be successful. Thank you.
Just one very quick follow-on, just based on what was just said on the variance question. Just a suggestion, so the wording in there that's in question, in the case of extraordinary circumstances, I just suggest maybe consider striking that. There's no, all it's doing is introducing question as to what that means when, the way it's worded, the board has the right to issue a variance whether you choose to or not. So to define extraordinary is everybody, but there's no way you'll be able to truly define that. So I don't know that it's even necessary because as you've done and are doing now, every variance is treated differently, independently, regardless of past action. So why does it have to be extraordinary? It's a variance regardless of what it is. And the board decides the level, whether it's worthy or not. So I'm not sure that you have to even say in case of extraordinary circumstances. I'm not sure what that, other than further confuse things, it doesn't really lend anything. Just a suggestion.
I hear you. I think that's not unreasonable. I do think, however, we need to stop the constant request for variances. There have been some meetings where there were 8 requests. And in doing this, we wanted to try to match the different districts. So the rules, so as I said, we don't have different strokes for different folks. Why is the harbor protection area different than the Hummock Pond? There's, they're both equally different. They're different, but they're equally threatened. And so, but I think that the extraordinary word is potentially a problem, so we'll look at it.
Madam Chair, I have one person online who's had their hand up for a while.
Okay.
I'm going to unmute Darla Stuckey.
Hello, go ahead.
Darla, I think you need to unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just wondered if the Nantucket Land and Water Council had weighed in on this. I think they're usually pretty thoughtful, so maybe you spoke to them, but I would love to attend another session like this and maybe they would be willing to speak to it as well.
Hi, my name's Willa Arsenal. I'm here on behalf of the Nantucket Land and Water Council. We have been following this as it goes along. I think that we're really in support of this effort to, as Chair Ann Ryan was saying, sorry, excuse me. I think that the language changes proposed tonight, we would like to review a little more closely before giving our official opinion on them. In terms of, I don't know if you're asking in just general about the new regulation changes. We're generally very supportive of this and would endorse this fully. In terms of the variance requests, I know that in the past when variance requests were made that there was sort of a bit of a give and take with previous decisions having impact on current variance requests. I don't have the code in front of me to bring up that exact wording of why it was that way, but I can understand the sort of wariness around the term extraordinary circumstances, but I think that there's room to move with that. I don't know if that answers the question.
I think she.
Thank you.
Her hand is down, so.
Thank you. I did,
Jaw,
yes, thank you.
hand still up?
I was just going to respond to her through you, if I'm allowed, just to say thank you.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
We can?
I was just going to say through you, Madam Chair, thank you to the representative of the Land and Water Council, because, yeah, I assume that they were probably supportive, and I just think, again, I just think more public outreach should be made as other people are talking about it, because I think it is a big deal, and I don't think people realize it's around, despite the fact that I know you've been talking about it for a while, because I listened in the summer when you had that fellow from Yarmouth or wherever. He was quite interesting. So I personally kind of know you've been working on this, but I don't know that others have, so.
Okay, thank you. Don?
Yes, I couldn't help myself. I had to get up here. You know, when you talk about variances, I just kind of want to remind the board, because I'm here for a lot of those variances. I would say the majority of them are variances to a 1972 outdated Board of Health set of regulations for Nantucket that was obviously created to curb development, you know, so I've always been hoping that you'd relook at that and change the Nantucket regulations and, you know, do it based on science. And not only that, but just to make it consistent with your other regulations. I don't own a property in the zone 2, you know. Obviously, this would be more work for us, but I just kind of sort of envision when we do get the calls after this is enacted, when the people find out that they need to do this. And from my point of view, it's such an unfair burden on those people that are in the zone 2 and have septic systems that want to add a bedroom and they can't do it because now we can't put an IA to get additional flow. I don't know how the town would explain it to them that, okay, we're gonna, number one, you can't do it, or number two, when you sell your property, now you have to spend $50,000 to add an IA system, when all it's gonna do is lower nitrogen, which, you know, the Wanacom already said that right now there are no nitrogen issues. And I know the Board of Health is doing what it can do in its purview, but I think for the layperson or the person that's going to be directly affected by it, if it was me, I would say, you know, this is great. The town should be, the whole town, all departments should be protecting the zone 2. You know, why should the burden be on me when, you know, I'm going to do this new system that's really not going to have any direct net benefit, you know? But at the same time, the town has all these antiquated drainage systems, all these, you know, developments, all these other uses that are within the same zone 2 that are probably, you know, much more harmful to the zone 2 than these individual lot owners' properties in their septic systems. I just think, I think it should be a consideration to the board. And that's why I keep asking and saying like a broken record, you know, where's the science to say that, you know, that this is needed and that these individuals need to pay the price?
Anybody else? Any on the board want to talk about anything? Jim?
I think we're just in the beginning stages of this. I think we're just in the beginning stages. I think we've got a long way to go and a lot of more people to hear from. And I think we, you know, we got to listen to some more people. We try to be as fair as we can, you know, but sometimes people walk in there and they just expect to get what they're going to get. And, you know, and sometimes we just have to say no. And the thing is, you know, I always thought, and I already said, if you give it to one guy, you're going to have to give it to everybody. And that's what we try not to do. We try to talk to people individually and try to help them. And I always thought, if someone comes in and they tried their very best to do everything they needed to do by the rules and they couldn't do it, then we're here to help them to try to make something, to give them a variance now and then. But we just can't throw the variances at these people and say, yeah, all right, put an IE in, you get 2 more bedrooms. We can't do that anymore. Got to stop that. But I still think we're just in the beginning stages, and we gotta listen to some more people.
Well, we will continue. The hearing will remain open. We will continue into December and beyond if it needed to be. So that is where we are. I think probably what makes the most sense is to hear from everybody who wants to comment, including some of the things like the Land and Water Council, have people come and actually make a statement on their positions. And then when we understand everyone's feelings, we can go back to the drawing board and see how this could be amended or changed in whatever way makes the most sense. So I'm going to move us along.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to make a motion to continue this public hearing to our regularly scheduled December meeting. Just to be formal about it.
Okay. Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Tom?
Aye.
Ann? Yes. Meredith?
Aye.
Jim? Carrie?
Aye.
All right, continued until December 18th, I think it is. Okay. Number 7 on the agenda is 12 Nanantum. There are 2 things, but number 7 is a well setback variance.
What's that?
Ready?
Yep, Don Bracken Engineering. Also here is Fiona Sue Jemison and her attorney, Susan McCarthy. It's been a few months since we had looked at this. So I think we've hopefully resolved the issues and addressed the comments from the board last time that we met. It was a little confusing because we were asking for well variances in the Title V variance. And at that time, we're asking for a variance to a leach and catch basin across the street from the well. But since then, we've revised the plan so that we no longer have any leach and catch basins that, in the area under the proposed conditions that would require a variance. So there are no longer any setback variances to the wells being, to the proposed well for this site being requested. So the other issue that I feel we addressed was the exemption under the well regulations. And I note the word exemption because it's not a variance, and it has to do with what we call the pill-shaped well protection zone, which you have to meet whenever you can, but unfortunately the size of this lot, we can't meet it in this case. And so because the lot was created going back to 1872, this lot is grandfathered from having to meet the full extent of that requirement. And so we obviously, meet all Title V requirements. And also to note that we're asking for the exemption from our own well and septic system and neighbor septic system. So we're not asking for an exemption to any of the abutters' wells or septic systems. So, back to the meat of the variance, we're asking for a Title V variance. Just to sort of recap, because it's been a while, Title V has a provision that each house shall be designed for 3 bedrooms minimum or 2 bedrooms with a deed restriction. It doesn't say anything about, well, what would happen if you want to propose a 1-bedroom dwelling in septic system. So obviously by the language, it's, insinuated that they're not allowed without a variance. And so hence, that's why we're here. And as I mentioned, that the board has previously issued this variance for at least a few other properties in the same neighborhood. So I think the other issue that came up is the abutter to the north and east had legal representation at the last meeting. At that time, contesting the issuance of a variance or, asking the board not to issue the variance. But I think since then, I'm assuming probably because of the plan changes that we've made and the evidence that was submitted for ownership, that they actually submitted a letter recommending approval to the board, which you probably don't have yet unless John sent it to you in the last hour or so. And then I get, in summary, we feel in this case that it's justified and meets the requirements of a variance, given the facts and circumstances of this individual case. The lot's always been considered buildable by the town, and the owners have always consistently paid property taxes and had the expectation that it was buildable. The proposed system ensures environmental protection because it does meet Title V. It meets the land area calculations for the nitrogen loading for the one bedroom. So we don't think there's any technical reason it should be granted. And again, the law was created before 1990. Well, actually, one other point that I think we added to this letter we didn't have in the first letter is that in 1993, the lot was approved for a 4-bedroom system. Septic approval is on file with the Board of Health. Obviously, that was never constructed. And then the owners think that the denial and request would deprive the applicant of any beneficial use of the property, which is obvious because without this variance, they can't apply for a building permit or use the lot for residential purposes as it's intended. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I always turn to my expert, evidence-based person. John, have you got something that you'd like us to know?
First, I see Carrie's. I don't know who you want to speak first, or I can certainly speak first, but.
Yeah, I can, I'm looking at the thing, I just want to verify that it has been deed restricted to a single bedroom. I wanted to verify that. And also, I was very, very impressed with the package of documentation going back so far. But, my big thing is, I just want to verify that the deed restriction is for a 1-bedroom.
Yes, so that's absolutely, I think it's in the letter.
Yeah. Just want to verify. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, by way of history, I think back in '92, this property was approved for a 4-bedroom system back when leach pits were allowed with the loading capacity at that time. And now the property is restricted to 1 bedroom. As Don pointed out, the board has approved this, two of these, I believe, that were kind of a stone's throw away from this property. I don't think this is really a situation you're going to run into very often at all in terms of lot size and neighboring wells that would restrict it from building. So it has a very small area for a leach field. So I think they've done the best they can.
What does anybody from the board want to say on this? Anything?
No issues based on John's comments. I would make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, Tom?
Aye.
And I, Meredith.
Aye.
Jim? Carrie?
Aye.
All right, there you go.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm here for the next one too, so
Are you? Let me see.
I'm not here to scare you down. or anything.
Oh, it's, well, Wait a minute, didn't we just do a septic variance? So the first was a well setback. Now we're on a, now we have this, now we have number 8.
I thought it was all at once, but.
Yeah,
it was all in the
I
same
did
order.
too, really.
Yeah.
So did we approve, or is non-antem complete? Yes? Okay.
Madam Chair.
Sorry, Madam Chair. if you want me to
John?
talk. So technically, after the changes that were made with the well, didn't really require a variance anymore. As Don pointed out, it's the exemption was because the lot was created before 1990.
Okay.
So that would be item number 7. So if you want to clarify, item number 8 is the septic variance, was the one that,
Which I think is what we just approved.
yeah.
Yeah.
So as long as that's clear. So,
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if the board needs to make a motion on number 7.
Yeah,
So,
Just to
do you wanna-
clarify.
Yeah, I'll just make a
For
motion
clarity's
to
sake.
approve number 8, and just to clarify that the previous motion was for item 7 on our agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
Ann? Aye. Tom?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Okay. Clear. Here we are on number 9, which is 6 and 6A, Washington Avenue.
For the applicant, Don Bracken from Bracken Engineering. Also here on the Zoom is Maureen Thomas. She's from Clean 2 Nitro System. She's been doing the testing, and she knows a lot more about the testing and the operation of the system than I do. So, but basically, this goes back, I think, to the spring of 2024. Had a long history. Bottom line is, the board allowed us to put this system in with conditions, because this was the first system being installed on Nantucket. It had great success, Martha's Vineyard and the Cape and so forth. Also for the board to have an opportunity to look at another system and see how it operates and see what the results are. So at that time, it was approved that testing was to be done every month for an 18-month period. So we're almost there, but the applicants would like to request to go from a monthly testing to quarterly, so every 3 months. And I think just based on the results that have been done so far, I think it's been like 12 or 14 months or something. It's very consistent, showing results that were discussed at the meetings. Has a 99% efficiency rate on nitrogen. Has a nitrogen load of about 3 parts per million, which is pretty unheard of, I think, for the IA systems that we have. So the other thing I'd like to note is if you look at the property, one of the other conditions that the board had, or we presented and they accepted, was there was a lot of lawn area on the property, which obviously lawns always generate nitrogen from fertilizer and so forth. On our plan, we showed a lot of the lawn area to be converted to natural areas, which has been done.
So the request is to change the monitoring
Correct. Yeah,
to every 3 months.
correct. A little more premature than what the board had approved, but
I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be possible, but anyone else, go ahead and,
I just have a little concern because this is like a newer technology and this is the first one that's on Nantucket, isn't it?
it is, yeah. But there are a lot of these systems out there, I think. So there's lots of testing available, not only for this system, but everywhere else. And I think the 18-month, I can't actually remember how we came up with the 18 months, but anyway, I think we're just going to be getting the same results, after the 14 that we've already done.
Would the representative like to go over some of these results with us?
Yeah, I'm
To
sure
tell us
Maureen would be
sort
happy
of-
to do that.
I don't know if anyone else is interested in hearing that, but I think that that would be helpful.
Is she ready?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, great. I would turn my camera on if I could, but I'm not sure how to do that here. But anyway, so we have taken 15 samples of the nitro system at the property. And as you've seen in your packet, the system is performing really well, removing 99% of total nitrogen and getting a concentration of less than 3, as Don mentioned, 3 milligrams per liter total nitrogen. The median is also the same at 99% total nitrogen. It's important to note that the average influent is 199 milligrams per liter and 200 milligrams per liter on median. We are prepared to continue sampling the system monthly in November, December, and January, as was required in the permit. However, we thought it would be worth presenting all of the data to you. At this point, we actually were hoping to get on your agenda after the first year, in September, October, but we just got too busy, and the results from the lab do take a little while to get back. So there was a little bit of delay in us providing that data to Don to get on your agenda. And we are monitoring 142 nitro systems on the Cape and Islands, and they are performing really well. We've taken, since August 2020, we do have some systems installed before then, but since August of 2020, we have a record of 1,212 samples on those 142 systems. And the average influent is much higher than what DEP considers as typical. We've measured 98 milligrams per liter on average for those systems and 89 milligrams per liter for median on those systems. And overall, we're getting 90% total nitrogen removal on average, 10 milligrams per liter total nitrogen concentration in the nitro effluent, and then a 96% total nitrogen removal for a median reduction, and a less than 4 milligrams per liter median concentration in the nitro effluent. So the 6 Washington Ave system is performing better than most of our systems, and is quite a bit better than average. It's a year-round system, and so obviously higher use in the summer, probably like most properties on Nantucket, Cape, and Islands. But yes, it's performing quite well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So the idea would be for us to move it to every 3 months, but how long would you propose? Should we have is that forever? Is that for, do you have a recommendation? John, do you have a recommendation how long that would go on for?
Well, I think by the approval, they're still obligated to do it 4 times a year right now. So, unless Maureen, you correct me, you would do 4 times a year, and then maybe in 3 or 4 years, come back and ask for less testing.
Yes. Currently, the provisional use approval requires quarterly sampling on all of our systems, unless it's a larger flow system where we requested a pilot permit, and in that case, it is monthly. We do hope to get our general use approval sometime in the next year or two, and then the sampling would be reduced to 2 times per year. But yes, quarterly going forward for the foreseeable future. If we do get our general use approval in the next couple of years, we would come back to the board to see if we could reduce the sampling to whatever DEP requires under that permit.
So I see no reason, given these results and everything, not to shift these guys to a every 3-month quarterly program. Anybody want to make a motion to that effect?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to change their monitoring to quarterly.
Second?
A second.
Jim seconds, okay. All in favor, Tom?
Aye.
And I.
Aye.
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
3 months.
That's it. For me. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Our favorite, 13 Woodland Drive, Lot 6. Okay.
Good evening, Dan Malloy, Site Design Engineering for the applicant. So you're obviously very familiar with the application. At the last hearing, it was decided to continue to today to give the board a chance to review the information that was provided to you in a new plan. Is a quick summary of why we're still here. There was a question, the board had concern over whether or not the lot itself that was before you was a buildable lot from a zoning standpoint. So I think we've overcome that in multiple ways. I can go into that, but I think I can go into that in more detail if you like, but I think it's clearly a buildable area. But I can go into a lot more detail if you'd like to get into that avenue. However, to make the point clear, we're now presenting you with one cohesive property that shows it as one big buildable lot. And you were asking, what's the potential? What are we going to see here? So what's before you is an application like every other for residential dwellings. I'm sure some or all of you are aware the applicant is also in discussions with the planning board looking for a possible elder housing or elder, not housing, but an over 55 type community here. So it's just a point to make it clear, it's clearly a buildable area. The applicant is taking measures to pursue different forms of development on the property. However, we're stuck in terms of how far we can progress until we have something from this board confirming what, if any, relief you're going to grant us. So the application before you is probably the very last, for some time, variance to do with the bedroom credits. You have approved numerous ones on this property, just as a background. We're looking for what would normally be a 4-bedroom system on this property to use the IA system to go to 7. That's the bulk of it. I can certainly go into a lot more detail in history if you like, but we're here to show you one big plan to answer the question on buildability, and that was really the only underlying question the board had.
I think I'm going to need to ask you to explain, you said you could go into more detail on why it's a buildable lot, because we had information, as you well know, that stated that it was not a buildable lot.
So, I mean, I can cover that in a lot of ways, and you've even had this discussion yourselves tonight. So, in your purview, what's before you is an application for a septic system. Every regulation and rule within the purview of this board has to do with whether or not the property can support a septic system. So all of the documents and evidence before you clearly show it can support a septic system. Whether it complies with zoning or any aspects of zoning, and regardless, have nothing to do with what's before you. So that's one answer. Secondary, the plan before you now shows it as one big property. So if zoning were an issue before this board, that has been corrected. So there's just those two ways. The applicant's also looking to do the elder housing facility. That's a third option. So there are other options and means and methods that they can present to show it as one buildable lot or two. But what I'd present to the board is that's not an issue for you to decide. The application before you is to do with the septic system and whether or not the property can support a septic system. So I'm trying to not get into detail and argue on zoning when we're here to talk about a septic system. I can certainly go on, but we're getting off track in terms of what the application is before you.
Except that the reason that we have delayed it is that there was some question whether it was a buildable lot. Because in my understanding, it was not accessible. But now you're saying that because it's now kind of encompassed in the larger property, it's all one thing.
Although there's multiple ways it can be accessed. So yes, before you right now, it's one property encompassed as one large lot. We had presented, I don't recall if, I know I talked to staff, I'm not sure if you saw our plan, we would easily provide an access easement to get to the back lot. So there are numerous ways we can make it an accessible lot for everything and anything to do with Board of Health septic system regulations. So that's what I'm trying to make clear is we're complying with every access buildability requirement that is in the Board of Health septic regulations, both locally and the state.
Does it have frontage now that I don't know about? I guess it still says lot 5 and 6, and I think that was the issue. It didn't have.
Is the point.
What I'm trying to
Did he
say
make
is-
it into two lot? I mean, did you take it from two? I guess I don't know
It's all
if
one
it's been
lot.
filed with the town that it is now one lot instead of two. I don't see anything from you guys saying that, and I am hesitant because there's been so many different iterations, including these pretend houses, I guess, that were put on here to show us what you could do, to what was presented to the planning board, because I watched that. So I guess 19 bedrooms is a lot of bedrooms. To say I might do elder housing, I might just put a bunch of houses, I might do whatever, when I don't see anything saying that it's one lot now. I guess, have you
So
guys
that's-
registered that?
That's what I'm trying to answer is, and again, in multiple ways. First off, we're presenting it to you as it will be one lot, but irrespective of that, whether it has 1,000 feet of frontage, a mile, or none, that's not an issue for this board. We're here to talk about septics. So the Board of Health has no jurisdiction over anything zoning related. Whether we can talk about it all night, but
I guess, wouldn't we kind of look silly approving septic systems on a lot that's not a real lot, that the building department would say is not a real lot? I guess I feel like that makes us look like we don't know what we're doing if we're approving something on a lot that's not considered a real lot by other departments.
well, the problem with looking at it, so right now it's being looked at as a single residential building lot, but it can be many other things. It can be what's presented to you right now as one cohesive lot, which absolves the whole zoning question. It can be presented as an elder facility, which is absolutely under consideration, which takes away the zoning question. So there's multiple ways it can be put together where it is a building lot. And I can show you iteration on iteration of that to prove the point. But whatever is shown to a different board, what we're trying to do is determine what our limit is, what we can put for septic and bedroom capacity on this property, so we can determine which path the owner is going to take. If they decide to do something different than what's shown in this plan, we have to come back to the board, or at least to the staff, to present to them a different plan with a different design. That happens routinely where projects are amended and changed. Where we can't get a permit to do this and suddenly do something else without a new permit or at least an amended permit being issued. So there's no, this is a routine occurrence in terms of one board approving something one way, it's approved a different way somewhere else, and then one or the other is amended to bring them into line. But in our case, we can't proceed further until we pass this board.
Mr. McKenna has had his hand up for a couple minutes now.
All right, thank you. If they are technically legally two separate lots, which is kind of what I'm hearing, that there's ways to, through easements and stuff, to make them treated as one, but if they are two separate lots, the one in the back is unbuildable. And if the developer is going to develop plans for us to treat them as one lot, why doesn't he just make them one lot?
And I can answer that quickly. So this board is probably not accustomed to see it, but there are oftentimes properties that are made up of multiple parcels. It doesn't mean they have to be physically combined to one. So we're presenting to you an application and a plan that shows this combined as one. But you can still have a property line going down the middle of it, irrespective. It's being permitted and applied to as one contiguous parcel. It can be made up of 2 lots, it can be made up of 20 lots. But the application before you is treating it as one overall parcel of land, regardless of how many pieces make it up. The application is for an overall area. How many lot lines are inside of that area is meaningless from the septic standpoint. If that answers it. That's very routine to have a property made up of multiple pieces of land. That's not uncommon.
Graham?
Thank you. Graham Kilward, Skyline Drive. I'm just really looking for some clarification. I think a month ago or the last meeting, Mr. Murray came in with a plan for a single-family dwelling for a primary resident with 8 bedrooms and a secondary dwelling with 4 bedrooms. Based on that design, this board approved a 12-bedroom system. At a recent planning board meeting, he submitted plans for a completely different plan that would, and he's looking for 8 dwellings, I believe 2 bedrooms each, for an elderly housing development. To accomplish that, he needs to obviously put in additional septic, which I believe is what this plan is, still showing primary dwelling and a secondary dwelling. My personal opinion is Mr. Murray has no intention whatsoever of building that, and will obviously pursue the 8-lot development or 8-house development, which obviously is more advantageous to him. My question is he required, or are developers required to clearly delineate what they're going to build as part of the approval process for this board? Or can they get approval for a system, change the plans anytime they want, and build whatever they want down the road? That's my question. Thank you.
I think that's a very good question. I don't know that we have ever addressed it totally, but it would seem to me.
I think typically people come with an actual plan and say, this is what I am going to build, and it doesn't change 10 times in the course of 6 months or a year. But maybe John has words of wisdom. I guess I feel like if we're going to approve things, then we should know what we're approving, and we're not just saying, oh yeah, you can have 1,000 bedrooms, whatever you want to do. I don't know that that's our role either.
So my comments would be to the board from a Title V perspective. So kind of in regard to that with the buildings and everything, there's different flows, design flow requirements for different buildings. So an office building, so many square feet is 10 gallons per day or something. So a single-family dwelling, a bedroom is considered 110. So you'd have different, based on the use of the building, different design flow requirements, but any bedroom is going to count as 110. In regard to kind of the plan and everything, it's just has to show the buildings, what is it? All dwellings and buildings existing and proposed on the facility. That's what's required of a plan to be submitted for approval, and it's to include the legal bounds, which are shown on the property as well. So, which, you know, both of these things are. So, you know, if something else did come in, it would require obviously a revised plan for us to review. So in terms of buildings, setbacks, that kind of stuff.
You got to say that again, John. I'm not sure what you said.
Sorry. So in short, the plan shows legal boundaries on it, which is required. It does show buildings that, you know, on the facility, which are the septic systems serve. So any change to that, of course, would require a revised plan for us to review for. You know, one circumstance is there was a lot of test pits done on this property, I know that, but, you know, any moving around or anything, the leach field would have to be where the test pits were done. We'd have to check the setbacks from the buildings to the leach fields, tanks, pitches of the building sewer going into the tank. So, yeah, I mean, any plan needs to be reviewed and approved, and anything changed would need to be revised. So would need a revised plan.
Can I ask a question, John? So I would think there would be a more environmental impact if you're looking at 8 standalone houses compared to 2 houses. And I just am concerned because you're saying that they just have to come with plans, but this doesn't seem to be the current plans, because the current plans were what were shown to the planning board on Monday. And here we are on Thursday, looking at plans that we've been looking at for months. So I'm confused, but I would think that 8 homes would have more of an environmental impact than 2 homes. Is that correct?
I mean, it's kind of, I mean, technically, no. I mean, a bedroom's a bedroom based on Title V. So that would be the environmental impact is the number of bedrooms. It would be required for 110 gallons. The leach field would need to be sized for 110 gallons per bedroom. So the requirement's still going to be the same in terms of septic systems and everything. So I don't know, you know, there was a plan apparently presented to the planning board. You know, this is what's before us, or this is what would be come in front of us, in front of our office, which we would look at and would be, you know, would be required as part of the application to get approval. And of course, they're applying for the variance for the extra bedrooms.
So let me just ask you what I think I hear you say. It does, we are approving bedrooms. It does not, or disapproving. It doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter what shape they're in. It doesn't matter what their design is. It doesn't matter whether it's all one building or multiple little buildings. It's really the amount of bedrooms.
Yeah, you're essentially approving the design flow for the property, the facility. So, you know, in this case, if this was one lot and not going for IAs for extra bedrooms, I mean, we wouldn't be here. So it'd be a conventional system with the plan that's shown with, 12 bedrooms or something to that nature, so.
Would it make you comfortable if you are considering a vote to approve it, considering a condition where if the plan were to change substantially or a different type of activity or use, that we come to you instead of just going to John in the office, here's a revised plan, present it to you as a board so you can at least see what, I agree with what John said, it's you're approving a bedroom capacity. But we're not trying, certainly, we're not trying to pull one over on you and do something different. So if something changes, it always goes to staff for their review. It always does. Would it make you more comfortable if, and I'm saying if, because there was a discussion with the planning board, but right now, this is the plan we're presenting. If it turns out to be something vastly different, or even if it's a different type of project, so I don't have to define vastly, just it's a different type of project than, say, a single-family development like this, that we at least come back to you at a public hearing and present the plan to you so you can see this is what and I'm only saying this if it changes, this is what we're now proposing to do, this is how it complies, here's the septic system, the bedroom counts, everything is there. So at least you have an opportunity to see it, and it's not something that's, I don't want anybody to feel like if it's just John behind the scenes approving it in the office, and you have no idea it's even going on. But realistically, it's what John said, well, you're approving a bedroom capacity, just like you would in every other lot. It's regardless of whether it's one building or 50 buildings.
Can I make a comment? Carrie?
Carrie?
Yes, my concern is that, I understand the bedrooms and the lot size and all this stuff. There's two issues that I'm still stuck on. One, there is in the public world, we've read it in the papers and it's been the Board of Planning Board, a totally different plan being considered for this lot. So that issue. Another is that, we say it's one lot, but it really is still two lots. And John had kind of implied too that, that if you had 8 individual structures, it does change the layout. And then once you start changing the layout, you start like I look at more and more issues concerning property lines and stuff. So I would prefer having continuance till we actually see a plan that is the one that might be going forward. Is it 3 buildings with 19 bedrooms? Is it 8 buildings, a total 19 bedrooms? I think there is a big difference because the types of buildings you put up may impact how many, with all the other regulations in terms of, like John mentioned, flow and slope and property line setbacks that, I'm still not comfortable with this at all.
I have a hand raised from Darla Stuckey again.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Hi, it's Darla Stuckey again. I do live on Woodland, and that's why I'm kind of here on this. I don't know how to ask this, but it seems to me the variance is not something you get as of right, even if you do put in the IA system. I'm not sure about that, but that's what it sounds like I hear sometimes when I listen to you. So Mr. Mori already came for 12 bedrooms on the 2-bedroom lot, which I guess includes a variance. Then he told the planning board he wanted 8 houses with 2 bedrooms each, which is 16 bedrooms. And now he's coming to you again with a 19-bedroom plan. I mean, it seems to me you guys can just figure out what he gets as of right on a total land area of 3 acres, and then maybe give him a little something for the variance, but he doesn't, I don't know why he has to have 19 bedrooms if 12 is what you would normally get on 1 3-acre lot. Just my 2 cents, but I'm worried about the density and also a little frustrated that honestly, it's like, I don't mean to be mean, but it's kind of like nailing Jello to a tree, figuring out what he's going to do, so.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Graham?
great. Again, I'm just looking for some clarification. Is this a special permit requirement or, I have 2.8 acres. Can I put in a 16-bedroom system if I want? Or am I somewhat limited? I can tell you there's no one in our entire neighborhood that has a 12-bedroom system. I can almost guarantee you that. So my question is this a special permit that's being requested to expand the total bedroom count on this lot to whatever it is, 14 or 16?
It's a variance request. There are no special permits. It's a variance to the board of their regulations to allow the bedroom credits.
I guess you need to help us and Mr. Gilbert understand it seems like a great amount but there must be, what is your total acreage?
The total acreage here is 127, roughly 128,000 square feet. So just over 3 acres. And I'm not sure how I can help clarify some. I know there's the underlying question of property lines. Again, isn't an issue for this board. As long as any septic system meets dimensional requirements to setbacks, that's all that's relevant. In terms of, again, however many pieces of land make up the overall piece, again, is irrelevant. The application to the board will spell out a certain amount of square footage, period. It's not relevant how many pieces of land total to make that one piece. The application stipulates a certain square footage. It could be made up of 1 piece of land or 10. And I am very confident that you have knowingly or unknowingly approved multiple applications that are made up of multiple pieces of land. And I may have approved some with you. It's not something that I would have ever presented to you that say this piece of land is made up of parcel A, parcel B, parcel C that collectively make up 50,000 square feet. It's the overall area that's relevant.
Sorry, through you, I respectfully disagree. I think that we have had this come before us where people have owned lots right next to each other and wanted to put something on one side. Am I correct?
Right.
And had to come for a variance because they couldn't meet the setbacks with their well or their septic in certain areas because of the size of the lot, but they also owned next door, and could they move things? This has come, this sort of thing. So the fact that this was on the front page of the newspaper for 8, and I am for elder housing, and I think that that idea is better than some two gigantic houses that nobody will really live in, and is better for our community. And I believe that the planning board recommended that he speak to the housing trust. Is it Tom? The Nantucket Housing, I can't think of the name.
Affordable Housing Trust?
Yes.
Yeah.
About having some affordability, and but I do think they are 2 separate lots that he has not recorded as, I mean, nobody has made those 1 lots. You're saying it doesn't matter because the same person owns them. But I would also like to remind everyone, we've already approved 4 lots with 3 bedrooms each. So there's already 12 bedrooms going in, and this is 19, an additional 19 in this same area. So I guess, but my concern is more that it's not recorded as 2 lots. So it's lovely that you can think of them as one because they're owned by the same person, but they are still 2 separate lots, correct?
So they are 2 separate lots, but the application to the board connects them together by square footage.
So have they been recorded that way, though?
No, they haven't. So the plan shows the legal meets and bounds as is required by the regulations. The plan will be recorded. It has to be recorded before the applicant can actually act and build anything. But we need to understand what we can do before things get recorded. It's not unusual for a plan not to be recorded before you go through permitting. So again, the application before you spells out a specific lot area. So the applicant is encumbered by that application if it were approved by that square footage. They can't cut something off, they can't it is officially combined in terms of if a permit is issued that says 124,000 square feet on it, then the plan and property that goes with it has to corroborate that area. It's bound at that point. That's what it is.
We also have the issue, which we've had in other situations, of if one part of a parcel were sold. And as long as it's not all one thing, as long as it hasn't been legally made into one thing, it seems to me, there are issues here, and certainly we're not lawyers, nor should we be, or anything like that. Seems to me that we have to have a legal document saying it's all one thing.
Well, we're getting back to the same thing. So the application is across these two properties. So from the regulatory standpoint of the septic Board of Health regulations, that's the end of that particular question. The regulations for septics and the application that goes with them clearly stipulate the address and the property area that application is being applied for. That is the extent of, in terms of the septic regulations, to deal with property lines and boundaries. In terms of sales, you can't, if this were approved on this square footage, the owner cannot cut off and sell a piece to someone else, because that act, as soon as it is sold, creates a violation with this board. So that can't happen. It's just not allowed. So it'd be like selling off a piece of your property and making it non-conforming in some way. That's the same thing that would happen here. So they can't cut something off and sell it to someone else without creating an enforcement issue with you.
You're asking us to approve a certain number of bedrooms, right?
Right, so the property, the lot by itself.
How can we approve a certain number of bedrooms, give you permission to build that many bedrooms, and this whole thing falls apart?
Well, that's.
Are we then obligated to, no matter what this thing turns out to be, are we obligated to give you them that number of bedrooms?
So typically, when a permit is issued, the permit would run with the land it's issued to. If the use or the use of the land or the plan itself were to change in some way, it requires someone's additional review. Depending on that, the extent of the change dictates the review. If it's a minor change, it goes to the office staff. That's the end of it. If it's a major change to the whole project, you can condition something to come back before you. So you can condition further review if there's a change to the plan. You could condition, instead of the plan going just to staff, we want the plan to come to a public meeting for our review prior to it proceeding. So you can condition it any which way you want, but generally it runs with, the approval typically runs with the land. However, if it were to change to something else, you'd be perfectly within your purview to require further review.
Mr. McKenna has his hand up, by the way.
I would like to see something in front of me, okay? And then, I mean, if we give you, I don't know, 15 bedrooms, okay? We have no idea what those 15 bedrooms are going to look like, what the building is going to look like, if it's going to be 2 buildings, or 1 building, or what if the whole thing falls apart and they don't let you join the 2 lots, or something happens, then we're in behind here saying, we've already given you permission for 15 bedrooms, so then what do? You can build 2, you don't join the lots, you leave it at 2 lots, and then you build 8 bedrooms in one building and 7 bedrooms in another, because we gave you permission for 15 bedrooms. I would never vote for anything like that, ever. I want to see something in front of me.
Well, what I would suggest, so what's, the plan up on the board behind you is what's in front of you. That is the plan that's being presented. That's the plan we're asking you to act on. If you're willing to act on that plan, I would suggest that you put a condition on it that stipulates that any changes in use, or I'm not sure how we word it, not use, or change in type of activity or type of use or something that effect on the property will require that the applicant come back to this board for further review. So it's not an open-ended permit. You have the ability to look at this if it changes. But what I'd say is, again, whether there's one house, two houses, whatever shape, size they are, is not something that the board should be considering. It should be the impact of the septic system as it relates to the septic system regulations.
You know, I think the issue here, one of the issues, is that Jim has been on the board the longest, and then Meredith, and then me. I don't think we've ever approved anything before where we didn't know what was to be built.
That's right.
But what I'm hearing is that actually, for a lot of a certain size, you're not approving a house. You're approving an amount of bedrooms.
So what I can tell you.
Is that right, John?
Yeah, the nitrogen loading, yeah.
That's what you're doing. We're not in the building issue. We're not architects. We're not HDC. We're approving a certain amount of bedrooms that is safe, nitrogen-wise, for the size of the lot. So I think that we have to sort of maybe get over a little bit the idea of that in the past, we've always known exactly what was to be built. And there may be a cause for a compromise here, which is that if it changes from what is being proposed, then we'll, I'm just
I'm happy to come
thinking.
back before the board and
With-
present a revised plan
We've
when we
always,
get there.
you're only allowed to give a variance to something that is, we can look at.
Not, that's not what I'm hearing. That's not what I'm hearing. I mean, I wish it were, but that's not what I'm hearing.
Carrie's hand is up.
Yes.
Yeah, Carrie? Carrie?
Madam Chair,
We can't
Well,
hear
my
you,
fault.
Carrie.
I was talking without a microphone. Sorry. One of the issues is there's two lots here. One of them is unbuildable if left to be two lots. The other is we're totally aware that there is a totally different plan out there. And yes, I understand that we consider septic systems, but how houses are built on a lot does impact what actually will work. So I think the choice before us is either to refuse this because there's so many questions, or to give it a continuance and for them to come back with the plan that is in the public domain already about elder housing. And what will is that going to be 3 buildings like they have here on this plan, or is it going to be a series of smaller buildings? And then we start looking at, well, the septic system placed properly, for that number of buildings and then property line setbacks. My leaning right now would be to go for continuance to be presented with the actual plan that is going to be done, because what is out there and what we have in front of us are very different. And again, there's an idea, there's 2 lots, one of them is unbuildable and that is an issue. So I'd be willing to make a motion to put this on continuance with the caveat that, we would like to have the plan for this lot. We're getting closer because, this is the 3rd or 4th time. We're getting closer. But what is the plan for this lot? And does that plan with the septic system design all work together?
Graham, I think you had something you wanted to say?
Yes, thank you. My original question was, is this a special permit? And this gentleman said it is a variance requirement. I think we all would agree that every single presentation that Mr. Maury has presented for this property required either a variance, sewer tie-in, some special consideration. From what I've seen to this board, when the board grants variances, they're usually hardship cases where the applicant, he's in a position where he can't build what he wants to build and it's reasonable, or it's grandfathered, whatever. In this case, it appears there's a variance being given to Mr. Maury again. And my question is, he doesn't have a hardship. There's no reason for this other than more houses and more money. So my question to the board is, why does he get a variance to increase the septic capacity of this property? Why nobody else in the neighborhood has that? Not that we want it, but it seems like, once again, he's getting special consideration for an ability to build more houses. No other reason.
We have one more hand up online.
Christy?
Hi, thank you. Christy Ferrantella. I do work for the town of Nantucket in the housing department, but just speaking as a private citizen. I was just here for the public hearing, but stayed in to listen, and just hearing all of this, I have one comment and then one question. My comment is just listening, like a major subject of the recent joint meeting between the planning board, select board, Board of Health, and the trust was how difficult permitting is on Nantucket. And I just think that this application and discussion of the last 30 or 45 minutes has really illustrated how difficult permitting is for all types of housing. But it seems to me that it's much easier to permit and pass through what might be a summer estate, given that other variances that were approved at the last couple of meetings, or the idea of a large house and a smaller house seems to be easily approved versus the idea that something might change to something more dense, whereas as what's been stated is we're talking about bedrooms, not necessarily houses. But that kind of leads me into my question, which is, does the Board of Health have any authority to restrict use in terms of occupancy and putting some sort of deed restriction on year-round occupancy, or is that only something that the planning board can do? And if you can't answer that tonight, is it something that you could maybe follow up with me with an answer on? Thank you.
Madam Chair, through you to Mr. Malloy. So after going through this for the last couple months, we've done a number of these variances, right? And I don't think it's special treatment. It's part of Title V for a variance for IA, right? What you're asking for is, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, is whether this septic system works environmentally and what our regulations are on this property for what's presented here. Everything outside of our packet is not really, unfortunately, relevant. And trust me, I hear about all these issues ad nauseum being on the select board. But this is what we're considering. And I think what you're saying is we need to consider this, or what I'm saying, right, is what we need to consider this. And if we don't want to grant the variance, that we should put reasoning behind it for an environmental reason, a Board of Health reason, or approve it with conditions or no conditions. That's really all, I think, all we have to work with here. Everything else, I think, is outside of our purview.
I don't think we have to give a reason why a variance is, this is the rule, I don't want to do it, so I'm going to put in this other septic. But we could very easily say no to the variance, and you get however many 4 bedrooms that lot. I think I agree with Jim. We always have a plan, and I think what Carrie has said is, I understand that you're saying this is all one lot, but it's not. It's nice that you take the line out, but it's not. I guess it's still there. It goes into the house, but it's legally 2 lots, and that has come for us, because the question becomes, if you sell one, and I understand that's not what we're, but like, it is legally 2 lots, am I wrong? And a variance is I mean, I think I've had this conversation a lot. A variance is, this is the rule, I can't meet it for a reason, or I don't want to, so I'm gonna put in this better septic system, but it's not, they're here because there's a reason that they can't or don't want to follow what the code says. Am I correct in that? That's what a variance is? Yes.
I believe a variance is relief from a regulation.
Right.
I would kind of say that the ownership kind of doesn't, it doesn't matter, like either works with the lot or it doesn't. The ownership, whether they're gonna, if one were sold, who knows, it might be an HOA or like that's outside of our purview. I don't think we can consider that.
But if they're 2 separate lots, one does not have frontage on any street, so
Why couldn't they be legally combined?
I don't know.
We can consider that if we know that beforehand. So don't say we can't consider that one can be sold, because we can
No,
consider,
but
if
if
we
it were
know that
legally.
beforehand,
If it were legally combined, if there was
if
no.
we know it
longer-
beforehand, we can consider it.
If I can help clarify a little bit. So again, if this were approved as it's presented to you now, they cannot legally subdivide or sell any part of this without completely voiding your approval. It's just not legally possible. They'd have a permit from you stating they can do this with this lot area. If someone were to somehow separate a piece off or sell it, that approval is now in non-compliance. They would immediately be, assumably be fined by John very quickly. And they would learn that they can't sell a piece of land because they have an entire application and assumably an entire development relying on this permit, which you've now just nullified by somehow selling a piece. So I'm not concerned about that happening in any way, shape, or form, because no one is going to build something and then sell a piece, create a nonconformance, and they will be sued by whoever bought it, as well as the town will be fining them. So we can talk all night about what if scenarios, but I don't see how that would happen. And to get back to the original point, what was just discussed is essentially the variance request is to allow a septic system to go in, which provides an enhanced level of treatment beyond which would happen conventionally. So does the system as being proposed provide an enhanced level of treatment which would otherwise not be provided? So if the variance weren't granted for the 7 bedrooms, could we put in a 4-bedroom conventional system with no IA component whatsoever, no treatment at all? So is the 7-bedroom treated septic system wastewater flow a better for the environment, or is a 4-bedroom non-conventional, just a conventional system? That's really the discussion at hand. What is an environmental benefit from a septic system standpoint? 4 bedrooms of untreated septic or 7 bedrooms of treated septic? That's regardless of the plan behind it. That's really what this comes down to.
That's right, and the only reason we're considering it is because the application came in before this new regulation may go into effect.
Correct.
Because if it goes into effect, we wouldn't even be considering it, but we need to, because your application was there prior to adoption, which we haven't yet done, but am I right? I think I am. So they are entitled by how it is now to have the extra bedrooms if the special system is installed.
So the application was filed in prior to all these regulation changes.
Correct.
So anyone has the right to ask for variance for anything. It doesn't mean the board has to approve anything, but anybody can ask for any variance that they want. So they asked for the variance. We've shown that we have a system that environmentally is better than a conventional. We're providing a treatment system which is better than a non-treatment system.
Yes.
So the request is that we're asking you to acknowledge that that's better and issue the bedroom credits, or if you choose not to issue it, we can put a 4-bedroom conventional system in, which, from my professional opinion, is not an environmental benefit, but that's the request before you.
Well, anybody can ask for extra bedrooms, but this board does not have to grant them.
That's correct. You're not obligated to grant a variance.
We're not obligated to grant you, just because you put an IA system doesn't mean you automatically get a bedroom. We've forced people to put IA systems in and didn't give them any bedrooms. We don't have to automatically give people extra bedrooms for anything.
That's right.
Mr. McKenna has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. I'm sticking to my points that, the placement of the septic system is a function of the structures, and we don't know what structures are going to be on that lot. So, we know that there is in the public domain, with the meetings, that there is a different plan. And again, placement of septic systems is a function of where the structures are. So could the lot under something handle 19? Yes. That's kind of that really basic minimal argument. Does the plan support it? We don't know because we don't know what buildings are going to be there. The second thing would be just, and again, this is my experience in another state, where I'm assuming the unbuildable lot is made accessible by an easement for the driveway across the one that has frontage. And where I used to live, you can't grant an easement to yourself. So that does present problems potentially down the line if they are considered two separate properties. So again, just if we had the plan that is actually being really considered in front of us, and we can see, well, where are you placing the septic system now by using a different building layout, or that's what I think we're looking for. It's not can the 2.92 acres support it. It's a question of structures impact placement of septic systems, and we don't know what the structures are. That's what I'm stuck on. I see 3 buildings, but I know that that's not what actually those buildings are going to be from what I've seen from the other planning, from the planning board, and from what's out there. So that's where I am getting stuck. Thank you.
So this is an interesting point, and I would need John to sort of help us with this. Depending on what is put on that lot, it depends on where the septic system would be placed.
Yeah, so in Title V, there's certain setbacks for the septic components to property lines, to cellar foundation walls. There's test pits done to check the soil, which is obviously where the leach fields are located within those test pits. So, yeah, there's just different setbacks that need to be met. So if things are reconfigured, those setbacks still have to be met, so.
So in order to approve it, we really do need to know what the design for this lot is, the final design. It can't just be bedrooms. It has to be where the bedrooms are. Am I right?
Well, it's really structures, and it's really the infrastructure of the lot. It's the buildings, it's the wastewater.
But it's not just a number. It's where they're placed. It's how they're built.
Well, I'm not I'm a little confused, sorry. I mean, they're built
Well,
on the
no,
lot,
mean,
so I don't.
If, what I'm hearing is a great deal of question about, is this best and final, your best and final offer? Is this the last and final plan, or are there others out there that may come to light? And so if there are other plans for how the lot would be used, or what buildings would be put on it, in what shape and where, that will affect where the septic system is placed. And so approving this is more than just a number of bedrooms.
That's right. You're right.
So how do we kind of get I guess we go back to what you were saying in the beginning, which is, we approve a plan. If that plan changes, that approval is null and void.
Well, let me ask it a different way, possibly. So if we came back to you with a different plan, whatever that plan might show, since we're talking about the elder housing, let's assume we come back to you with an elder housing plan. And it shows the septic system's in compliance with Title V, dimensionally meets all the things it has to meet normally. We're still asking for a variance. What on that plan, from a septic system standpoint and a treatment standpoint, is going to be different than what you're seeing right now? I'm trying, if this is something the board is leaning towards acting, or at least considering favorable action on it, and we continue and try to come up with a different plan, I can consider going down that path. But do I go down that path and prepare a different plan on what they might do, they might not do? The planning board doesn't have to approve it. And we come back again. It's, at the end of the day, we're talking septic capacity. The buildings have to meet dimensional setbacks to it, whether there's one building or more. But the request before the board is whether or not the enhanced treatment is beneficial to the environment to justify the extra bedrooms. Like I said, we can come back with another plan if that's truly the way we can get through this. But I don't want to waste your time and come back with another plan and start this all over again. I need to hear what it is that a lot of you are looking to see, and if I can provide that, I will. But I also don't want to waste your time providing more plans if we're just not going in the right direction.
Well, there's no point in providing plans if the plan's not going to be built. We need to know what's going to be built. I think that's what I'm hearing from you.
That's right.
I mean, I could tell you today that this plan is being built. There's nothing to say any property owner tomorrow can't change their mind and do something completely different. That's the problem we're looking at. So the owner here is considering other building options. That's obvious. Whether he's going to pursue those or not, I have no idea. He may not. Maybe I come back with this plan for elder housing and I show that, and you're happy with it and you approve it. He goes through the permitting process, he can't get a permit to build it. Okay, so I guess we're still doing residential housing, and we come back at that point to John with a revised plan showing just this, what you're looking at now, but still at the end of the day, doing the same septic system, the same environmental improvements, everything is still, from a septic standpoint, the same. So that's why I'm trying to give you an example. I can take that direction, come in with a different plan. But somewhere down the line, it doesn't mean that plan can't change again. Development plans change all the time. I know from a residential housing standpoint, you don't see it very often, but it's a very common occurrence. So I'm trying to just tell you, we can do this path. Maybe we're back, maybe we're not. But if that will get us to where we need to be, I'm happy to do that.
I think what we're struggling with is that although we understand the IA advantage, we have never not worked with an individual owner an engineer that had a specific plan for what they were going to put on that land. And what we're struggling with is that this seems to be, well, maybe it's this and maybe it's that. And what I'm struggling with personally is, does it matter? I think that several of us feel that it really does matter, and that in fact, what is put will matter in terms of where the system is placed and all of that kind of thing. So it's kind of I guess we have to assume that it's going to be one thing, and if it's not that, then it has to be a completely new assessment.
Well, my problem is, it's almost like you don't want us to help you. We're trying to help you. We're trying to put this whole thing together, but you want us to do it blind. You're saying, give me 15 bedrooms and trust me, it'll work.
19 bedrooms.
And that's not the way we work. We can't do that. We need to see something. I mean, give us something to look at. Give us something that we can say, yeah, we can work with this. Maybe we can make this thing work. But we don't know if you got 2 lots or 1 lot. Just saying, give me 15. Where did you come up with 15 bedroom? Why is it 15 bedrooms?
It's 19 bedrooms.
So the way we come up with it is using the treatment systems under DEP, under Title V. DEP will tell you if you use this advanced treatment system, which is an environmental benefit, will give you this number of bedrooms. That's the math. So we're here before you because locally the regulations are more stringent and say you can't get those extra credits without the board giving you a variance. So I'm obviously hearing you, and you're all very loud and clear. I can understand the direction. I'm happy to ask for a continuance. I just want to make sure I'm hearing everyone correctly, that if we were to come back at the next meeting with a different plan, which I will tell you now, I can't say for sure if a different plan even exists. But if we can come back with a different plan and it turns out to be the elder housing, if that's a direction they truly want to go, and we present you with a plan that shows that, are we headed in a positive direction? I sounds like we are. I just want to have a general idea before we continue. I don't want to keep wasting your time either and keep going down the same path.
I guess we said at one point we wanted to see houses, so you guys came back with some fake houses drawn on it. I guess I want to know, like, what, like, don't just come back and put some more fake houses. Like, why is it still 2 lots? And what is can you not get it? I don't think that we're the first stop for everybody. So I learned from that meeting that there's lots of routes people can take through the permitting process. So I guess, why are we the first ones? And couldn't the planning department approve some sort of a lot so we know what you're doing, rather than here's 2 fake houses that we threw on this paper that is still 2 lots, but we're going to say that they're 1.
So
I would like to hear what it's actually gonna, don't just come back with like, this is what we're gonna do today. Like, this is what is gonna be presented to the planning board. This is this is the direction we're going.
So very briefly, so every development is different. In terms of which path a project takes permitting wise, everyone is different. It all depends on what thresholds are needed at different points in time. In order for us to proceed with, say, the elder housing plan, we need to understand how many bedrooms we can get permission to put in, which will dictate the number of units. So we can't proceed officially down the next step until we get past with you, because we can't say for sure how many buildings we can put in until we have our defined bedroom count.
But don't you already have by right 16 bedrooms? Because we granted 12, and then the questionable lot by right maybe is 4. So
correct. So
you don't really need our approval.
If we come back to you, it'll be with a plan for 19 bedrooms spread out over some determinate amount of structures. I don't know yet what that would be. And that would, assuming the applicant is going to go in that direction, then that would be the plan that we carry forward in other boards. But I don't see a scenario where it's going to go in front of another board until it's done with you as a board. That's what I'm trying to make clear is they're not going to take the time and expense to go to planning board for a certain design and a certain number of buildings that rely on a certain number of bedrooms, only to come back to you to not get them and have to restart the process all over again. So in this case, the septic system is the critical component of the property. We need to get through this first, and then we proceed down the path of the boards. So
What does the owner really want to build here?
you know what I know. I'm not,
Well,
what I'm presenting to you, obviously, is the residential houses. Obviously, he's considering other options to do elder housing. That's obviously it's out there. That's what I can tell you. That's what I know.
so if he has 16 bedrooms without us doing anything, what's the difference between 19? Not much.
Three extra bedrooms could be an extra unit. It could be an extra anything. So obviously we have the 12. The second lot is entitled to 4 bedrooms conventionally. We can pursue the variance, come back with a different plan, and work with you to try to
Why
get to
don't
the
we
19.
give them 16, and then if they want to build one more, we'll talk about that.
Oh, really? So it's not a.
Mr. McKenna has
we do
his
that?
hand up.
I'm going to tell you something. I've been on this board for 16 years, all right? And I've never voted on something unless I've seen it.
Interesting.
And I'm not about to start right now.
All right, okay, we got that. Carrie, what
Yeah,
would you?
in some ways agreeing with Jim on this, and actually, in the way Dan described, I mean, it's like the Board of Health, it's not always simply a mathematical issue. We have to, it's not like, well, you're allowed this, multiply by this, add this, and boom, that's the way it works. What goes on the lot and the structures that are doing it have an impact on what actually works. What's presented to us works for these structures, but we know that that's not the real plan right now, that there are other things. I think it's pretty simple that we want to see what is what is going to be done. And if it's going to be multiple structures, then will the septic systems be able to allow, will those credits apply because of all the other regulations around septic systems, including setbacks from cellars, setback from property lines? So, it is more than just a simple math problem. It is, it's more like a Tetris type game where you've got to thinking across several dimensions to put it all together. We want that information in front of us to make sure that we are acting appropriately. That's it. Thank you.
Would appease the board, why don't I ask for continuance? I think we've talked this through. If it would work for you, I'd like to request a continuance with the intention of coming back at the December meeting with either this plan, or if there is a different plan, whatever that different plan will be. At that time, we can present it, and you as a board can decide if whatever it is we have before you is adequate to answer your questions.
I think we would need to know the plan, and you would have to stick to that plan. So I think it's a great compromise for right now. But I think we have to, so is December enough time? That's really my question. Because I think you're gonna have to, there seem to be, I haven't read what's being said in the front page of the paper or whatever, but I guess there's a lot of things going on, and I'm wondering whether December is the right month for you to come back to us. Will you know enough by December?
We will be able to design it and bring it to you for the December meeting. Is the third, I'm assuming, is it still the third Thursday, given the holidays? Yeah,
Yeah,
okay. So we can get it done, get it filed with you a week prior to the December meeting.
but will you know enough about the owner's intentions and the,
If we do not, then you'll get another continuance request. I won't show up here
Okay,
to present something that's
Okay.
not complete.
fine.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may I make sort of a out of the box or a random suggestion? What if we delegate yourself as chair to, before this comes back to us, to have a discussion with Mr. Malloy and possibly his client to make sure, you've heard our conversation, you know where we're all generally at. But what I don't want to see is this coming back to the board and then us spending a lot of time on it and there being a lot of unanswered questions. So I think it might be beneficial that if you were to have a meeting or a call with them at some point, maybe in 2 weeks, and sort of check in and like, this is where we're at. And then you can kind of take what the board said here and say, that sounds like where we're going. It's going to be on the agenda. Now, I know we're making a continuance, so it's going to be on the agenda anyway. But like, I think that would be a good benchmark for us to know, for you to know as chair, whether there is a decent chance of us making some sort of decision for our next meeting. If you're willing to do
I'm
it.
happy to do that, but is that okay? Is that, I don't know, is that, you're good.
With open
You're good on these kinds of
With open
rules.
meeting law, yeah, that's.
I could do that?
Yes, yes, you
Okay.
can do that.
It's not uncommon for that to happen.
All right,
That's perfect. So what I can do is communicate with John. And let's say in roughly a couple of weeks, we can be in touch with something, the direction of where we are. And we can review it. And if it looks like it's going in the right direction, we can get it wrapped up and bring it back before you, or you'll see a continuance at that meeting.
into January or something like that.
Correct.
All right, okay, I think we need some kind of motion for
Sure,
all
I would
this.
make a motion to continue item 10 on our agenda, 13 Woodland Drive, Lot 6, to our regular scheduled December meeting, which is the 18th.
In favor, second?
Second.
All in favor? Jim,
Yes.
Meredith,
Yes.
and yes, Tom?
Aye.
And Carrie, aye.
All right, that's what we're gonna do.
Thank you.
Phew. 11. 47 New Syosconset Street.
Madam Chair, yeah, I can speak if no one's here. This is, this property owner's asking for a variance not to upgrade their septic system. So the history of this, they're not, they're seeking not to upgrade the septic system due to the thought that town sewer is going to run down the street in the near future. We've been in contact with the sewer department, who's relayed to us that they don't have any projects in front of them to put down the infrastructure for town sewer down the road at this time. The history of this is it's a house out in Sconset, which is in the Sconset wellhead. There's a outbuilding in the back of the house, a studio building which had no plumbing and was just truly an art studio. And now it came to our attention that they ran a pipe from the studio building into the septic system, and was brought to our attention, and we said, what's going on? So Sean was in touch with them. So they had done this work, unpermitted work, no permit. Sean was in contact with the property owner and said, yep, we connected it. We want to have this studio building and add a bathroom in there and turn it into a bedroom. So said, well, you need to upgrade your septic system to do that. It's an undersized lot, and as I said, it's in the wellhead. So they need to install an IA system to come into maximum feasible compliance due to the area. And again, so the property owner's requesting not to upgrade due to, supposed plans to run town sewer down there. So I recommend denying that based on the sewer department's email that we received from the sewer director stating that there's no projects in front of them in the near future to run sewer there, so.
So, no sewer is coming, and they're in the wellhead, so they need to install an IA.
Yes, because it's an undersized lot. It's, I think, probably about 25,000 square, it's not an acre, I'll tell you that. It's not 40,000 square feet, and it's approved for 4 bedrooms. So doing this, I believe that the house is 3 bedrooms, and adding this which is an increase in design flow, which I've always considered to be an upgrade requirement for an upgrade, since it's an increase in design flow from what the current existing system is. Therefore, the need to upgrade to an IA.
Do we need to give them a timeline that they have to do it by?
To install the new system? That was already issued with the order, so I would need to review that timeline with the letter that was sent out, the order.
But I guess if there was an appeal, which is today, does it begin as of today, the timeline?
It shouldn't stop them, in my opinion. I mean, anytime you're out of compliance, an appeal doesn't really
Okay. I wasn't sure if how that
freeze any
worked.
time to come into compliance. In my opinion, this really should have been an appeal to the board, which should have been done within 7 days of receipt of the order, and this was sent back in June. So this letter was sent on June 2nd, which was the order to come into compliance, really. It was really cease and desist the work because it was done without a permit, and then to come in compliance, so.
So how long does he have starting now? No, not very long, I guess.
No.
30 days, according to the enforcement order.
Okay,
Can I ask a question, John?
yes.
How did this happen? Like, I feel like this is another one of those, the planning board approved it, but like kept it a secret. Of what needs to happen, like it feels to me a little unfair to, or at least to be finding someone, like why they weren't told, like it just doesn't make sense to me. And I feel like we've seen a few of these from the planning department where they were like, yep, nope, you're good to go. Here's your stamp of approval. And then the health department's like, well, wait a second, after things are done, like that doesn't seem right. Do they not know our
I
health
don't
department
believe so, because
codes? Do
the
they not
owner was
understand this?
very, very clear that they had actually, the company that installed it, the licensed installer was Toscana, and they should have known that you need a permit, and the permit should have been supplied to them, an approved permit through our department, stamped by an engineer or registered sanitarian to do that work. And the property owner did admit and said, I did tell them that I did have a permit, so that the work was okay to be done. So it was a lack of understanding of knowing that you need to get a permit to do any type of septic work in that regard. I would say the planning board does planning board stuff, for technical dwellings, and this should come to our department. It's just separate matters altogether. And again, any septic work, you need a permit to do the work, and they didn't have it.
Okay, well, I think the first order of business is we need to vote on the on the
Does-
whatever it is. It's not a
does this-
variance. Yes, it is a variance.
Does this qualify for the,
Loan?
yeah,
It does not, since it's new construction. The loan is for failed systems, so.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Based on the recommendation of staff, I would make a motion to deny the variance.
Second? Jim? Jim seconds? Okay. All in favor? Jim? Meredith?
I'm going to abstain. I just don't have a yes or no in my head. Only because I feel
What
like,
about the road?
huh?
The road.
What road?
He knew they weren't building a road. One of his excuses is he thought they were building the sewer was coming, and apparently he was told a long time ago the sewer wasn't coming.
Is it a problem if I abstain? Is it a problem if I abstain?
No.
Okay, I'm just saying
ahead.
that I'm abstaining from it. Because I feel like the planning building should have, the planning
Okay,
department
okay,
sort of
that's
was
good.
at
And
fault too.
aye. Tom?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
All right. That carries with one abstention. So the letter to endorse the Massachusetts state bill that Meredith wrote, I thought, very well.
But I put the wrong address. I've changed that.
Oh. Okay. I really liked it.
Yes.
Has everybody had a chance to look at it and read it? Carrie?
Yes, and well-written and totally in support of the legislation. And I think our actions, as stated in the letter, show our support and that our, it's the right thing to do.
Tom?
Madam Chair? Yeah, I think the letter's great. I would have one semi-pedantic suggestion for a change. I've written lots of these after working for our state rep's office, and you usually write the letter, you address the letters to the chair of the House committee and the Senate committee. So if we could just address it to those two and put members of the committee as well if you want. It's not a major thing, but that's just kind of standard protocol. But the letter's great.
Okay. That makes sense, and it's good that you knew that.
Thank you. And should I include our, is it Seer?
Yeah, Senator Sear and Rep. Moakley, I would just CC them.
Okay.
Or you could send it directly to them and ask them to forward it. Either one is fine.
Do we vote to endorse it, or do we just say?
Why not? I'll make a motion to endorse
Okay.
the endorsement letter of MA State Bills S 585 and H 900.
Second? Jim, you seconding?
I'll second.
All in favor? Jim? Are you saying yes? You're supporting it. All right, Meredith?
Yes.
And yes. Tom?
Aye.
Carrie?
Yes.
Okay. That is unanimously supported. Thank you, Meredith. Okay, we have our update.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Andrew Shapiro, Environmental Contamination Administrator, here to give the monthly PFAS update. First of all, thank you to everyone who came to our public information session on Monday. We had a top-notch scientific expert, and we had pretty good attendance. So thank you to those who attended. Getting into our data update, since the October Board of Health meeting, we have had 59 PFAS tests roll in. We have one new detection above the state standard on Nashan. We have 14 detections below the
Where's
state.
Nasha?
Nashan?
Thought
I'll
it
show
was
it,
an
I'll show it on the map in a
island.
minute. Nashab, okay. I'll show it on the map in a minute.
Yeah, Nashan is an island in the Elizabeth Islands.
It is.
That's why I,
14 detections below the state standard. You know, you don't want PFAS in your water. We have 44 non-detects. I think the big question is probably Fulling Mill. I had heard from Mass DEP that they would be on site this week. They have since canceled and will be on the island after Thanksgiving. Since freezing the data for this update, I've also got a detection on Fulling Mill above the state standard. I've also heard over the phone that some people have also tested high. I don't have all the details on those tests, unfortunately, but they've reported them to Mass DEP per protocol. Just emphasizing the importance of getting Mass DEP out here for additional analyses. So on our map, I'm just going to zoom in slightly. We have a new detect on, I believe the street name was Nashan. So it's in this area, and it creates a new buffer on our map.
oh, okay.
Confirmed, it's a real place?
Yeah.
Okay, good,
Okay,
good.
okay.
We actually have a good amount of data in this area previously. You know, we have seen detects of PFAS pop up in many places around the island. So, you know, even if there are lower level detects or even if there are non-detects in the area, it's still important for people to test their water. We're still getting detects in many places. And then just looking at the numbers a little bit, between the data that runs through our Board of Health and Mass DEP sampling, we have almost 500 properties sampled. You know, we are making progress. I recently just did a count, and since July 1st, we've had over 200 samples roll through, so people are testing their wells, which is great. Here's our distribution of results. It looks pretty similar to last time. No big surprises here. And then I'm wrapping up. We had a great public information session this week. I'm looking forward to another one on Thursday, December 11th. I'll be here in person from that, and we will have in person as well Dr. Tamara James Todd from the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, and her presentation will be PFAS and Our Health, the Impact of Forever Chemicals Across Different Seasons of Life. It'll be in this room as well as on Zoom and YouTube, so I hope you all can make it. And that's it for my update.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. The talk, I don't know if any of you have watched it, was amazing. And it's really amazing to just hear more. I know she mentioned the continuing medical education that is on the Silent Spring website.
At least linked on there.
Yeah, that's on YouTube. It's really good. I know this is my soapbox, but I'm really happy that we have so many samples and we're really getting more of a picture of what we have going on. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great, okay. Does anyone else have anything that they would like to say? Because otherwise we can adjourn, I think. Can I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
Second.
All in favor? Tom?
Aye.
Ann? Aye.
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye, Carrie.
Okay. That is